A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus said to the disciples, "But in those days, after that time of distress, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will lose its brightness. The stars will fall from the sky, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the promised one coming in the clouds with great power and great glory. Then the angels will be sent to gather the chosen from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of heaven. Take the fig tree as a parable. As soon as its twigs grow subtle and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see these things happening, know that the promised one is near, right at the door. I tell you solemnly, before this generation has passed away, all these things will have taken place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But as for that day or hour, no one knows it, neither the angels of heaven, nor God's only begotten, nor God himself." My friends, the good news of salvation. Praise to you, Jesus Christ.
Bob started off with, not that it's Bob's fault. I mean, these readings, when you experience these readings, you can experience kind of the doom and gloom, like, oh my God, you know. And in many ways, many people have experienced that as the doom and gloom. But I think maybe there's a different perspective we can bring to it tonight. I think there's a different way to look at this whole experience, especially this time of year. Because you know what the church is doing is we're winding down the liturgical year, right? Next weekend we celebrate the Feast of Christ the King, and then we enter Advent. So we're entering a whole new season, a whole new liturgical season, and we switch Gospels and everything. So you also have to realize that, I hate how they teach only, but a part of what's happening here is we're at the end of Mark's Gospel. Mark's is the shortest Gospel, also the earliest written. We're in the very last 3 chapters of it. We're chapter 13, so we're near the end, so Mark's trying to wind things up. I mean, not literally in a bad way, but whatever. Just leave it there. My friends, there is something unique about living and working in an environment that is literally on the very edge of life. Ask anyone who has or does work in hospice care, right? Or ask anybody who has served in a birthing unit, if you will, or a police department, or the corrections department, or the military, or any first responder role, and you will hear over and over and over again that no matter what, that experience has changed them. It has changed them. There is something about living and working on the edge that drives us to discover and to explore and to ponder and to contemplate the meaning of life and how it all works. That rare is other jobs or other ministries in life. It might be a little bit wise for most of us, or for many of us, these readings are kind of stark and scary. Oh, that was heaven. It might be part of the reason that for many of us, when we hear these readings, it takes us back a little bit. But if you find yourselves in one of those environments on the edge, this is like a daily lived experience. I cannot tell you how many times in 17 years with the police department that I went to fatalities only to have the family or the person who is in the midst of dying tell me, "I never thought this would happen today." Or to talk to a family and say that was the furthest thing from our life. It just happens that on those things, or in a hospital, or any of those settings where you're dealing with the edges of life, and you find that you're forced to ask yourself these questions. So I propose really what comes out of this gospel is not questions of doom and gloom, but really questions of hope and potential and possibility. Rather than worrying about whether the stars are going to fall out of the sky and Mount Jehovius is going to blow up over there on the other side of the world, or the Chinese are going to send a nuclear thing our way, or Korea's going to do this, or you know what, people? I'll tell you what, it's going to happen. We're going to be born, we are, and we're going to die. We will. Okay? That's reality. You can't get more real than that. Those two things are going to happen. We're a part of that, and we have to live through it. So here's the question that I really think the gospel is bringing forth. Here's the question that I think might be encouraging us to look at possibilities and potential rather than doom and gloom. They're very simple questions, but they're quite loaded. Okay? It's simply like this. If life was going to end for you tonight at midnight, what time is it? 6:30. If it was going to end for you tonight at midnight, what would you do, or what would we do differently, or with the remainder of our day? Let that sink in for a minute. If our lives were going to end at midnight tonight, 5 hours now, right? I'm really bad at math. Not a strong point. 7, 8, 9, whatever. 4 hours. If it was going to end in 4 hours, what? Am I wrong?
It's 5.
Is it 5?
It's 5.
5.5. I really said it early. 5.5 hours. If it was going to end in 5.5 hours, what would you do? What would you do? What would I do? I don't know. What would we do? Then here's really the question that lies underneath that question. If you can answer it, then why aren't we doing it? Then why aren't we doing it? Is there a phone call that needs to be made, a letter that needs to be written, an apology that needs to be rendered? Is there a thank you that needs to be said? Or a word of hope that needs to be shared, or a hug that needs to be given? Can't tell I'd like to do that. Or a prayer that maybe needs to be whispered. You know, I've had the grace to participate literally in countless workshops. I think I was a workshop guru for a while. I've had the grace to participate in thousands of workshops, I would say. Many of them on leadership and public speaking and crisis care. But one of those workshops sticks out in my mind. I can't even tell you what the title of the workshop was or what we were working on. I think it was something like CISM, which is Crisis Intervention, something like that. But the leader of that particular experience stopped all of us right at the very beginning, and he said, I want you to do this. I want you to do this. I want you to imagine some young person in your life. Some young person about whom you care deeply, and if it's a child, if it's a grandchild, if it's an aunt, an uncle, a niece, a nephew, whatever, picture it in your mind's eye. So I'm going to ask you to do this as well. Picture it in your mind's eye, some young person, or some other person if you're young. And imagine that you're going to write them a letter, and in those 20 minutes you've got, I'm not going to give you 20 minutes now, you've got like 30 seconds. But in 20 minutes, I want you to write them a letter and share the most important things that you have learned or felt or experienced in your lives. I want you to share with them your wisdom, presuming that when they receive that letter, you're going to be gone. Okay? You'll have made the transition from this life to eternal life, and they're left with this letter. What would they say? What would that letter say? What would we say? Many of you know I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I literally could complicate an amoeba. If you don't know what an amoeba is, it's a single-celled, most simple animal on earth. Okay, I can complicate it. I really can. Okay? When that gentleman gave me that assignment, I don't even go, well, no, there's no way I can do that in 20 minutes. And you know, my mind went to a million places, and maybe some of yours did as well. But literally, I thought, oh my God, I go and say this and this and this and this. And I have 20 minutes, I don't have enough paper, I don't have a computer, I don't have... See what I mean? Okay, that's a drunk for you. And maybe regular people do some of that too, but I know it from my perspective. But I thought to myself, okay, what would I say? What would I really want to say? And then I think, I've read thousands of authors in my life, and I've contemplated a lot of different stuff, a lot of different wisdom, I think. But one particular, and I'm thinking, okay, I got a short time to write this, 20 minutes, and this person's going to get it, and I'm going to be gone. What would I say? I really, honestly, probably with a number of other things, but Robert Fulghum is one of the authors who immediately came to my mind. And maybe some of you have heard this before, and maybe not, but I really think it carries a lot of weight. So if I had time to write this letter, here's some of the things that I think it would contain, and I would give him credit, because he'd probably still be here and I wouldn't. But he says this, and it comes from his book, Everything I Needed to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. Have you read that? If you haven't, pick it up. It's great. Go to Half Price Books. It's cheap. I ain't selling Half Price Books, but whatever. This is what some of my letter would say. It is what Robert says. These are the things I learned, he says. Number 1, share everything. 2, play fair. 3, don't hit people. 4, put things back where you found them. 5, clean up your own mess. 6, don't take things that aren't yours. 7, say you're sorry when you hurt somebody. 8, wash your hands before you eat. 9, flush. That's so true, but it's so simple. 10, warm cookies and cold milk are good for you, despite what any doctor says. 11, live a balanced life. Learn some and drink some and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work some every day. Take a nap every afternoon. Oh yeah, like we can do that. When you go out to the world, 13, when you go out to the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. 14, be aware of wonder. Remember the little seed in the styrofoam cup? The roots go down and the plant goes up, and nobody really knows how or why, but we're all like that. 15, goldfish and hamsters and white mice, and what do you got? Guinea pigs. Guinea pigs. And even the little seed in the styrofoam cup, they all die, so do we. And then, remember the Dick and Jane books, the very first words you learned, the biggest word of all, look. Look. That for me summarizes pretty much a lot of wisdom that I've learned in life. And I know there's a lot more to learn. To that, I would add in my letter, look, listen, learn, and above all else, love as deeply as you possibly can. Love as deeply as you possibly can. He has another line that I think is extremely powerful. You may never have proof of your importance, but you are more important than you think. There are always those who couldn't do it without you. The rub is, you don't always know who. So my friends, I think the good news of the gospel is simply this. What would your letter say?